Good evening. We'll call this meeting to order. The Brawley City Council and successor agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency, our regular meeting here on July 16th at 6 p.m. Could we have the roll call, please?
The minutes will reflect all council members present.
Very good. And we'll have, if we could please stand for the invocation, Pastor Ecke from the Western Baptist Church.
Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Pastor Ecke. I'm the new pastor at Western Avenue Baptist Church. So just wanted to introduce myself and say what a pleasure it is to be here and get to know you all. And certainly you're welcome at any time to come and worship God with us on Sundays, 10:15 in the morning.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let me open up with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the blessings of this city. We thank you for the blessings of your servants here who are all called to help oversee and to administer to the affairs of this city. Father, we pray that you would guide them in wisdom, help them to go through the affairs, all the items that they need to be discussed for tonight. Give them wisdom to sort through them, to make decisions that are good and wise for the city of Brawley. And Father, we pray that you would continue to bless this city with their service and help this city to continue to have their needs met in any way, shape, or form as needed. And Father, we just pray that you would be glorified amongst everyone here tonight, and we pray these things in the name of your Son and our Savior, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And if Councilmember Couchman can lead us in the pledge.
Okay. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Couchman, and thank you, Pastor Ecke, for the invocation. That'll bring us to our first item on the agenda tonight, which is item number 1, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll go to item 2. Item 2, public appearances and comments. This period's not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any items that are not appearing on the agenda and is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone, so please state your name for the record. You're not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or comments that are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Please come forward if you'd like to make a comment. Surveying the crowd, seeing none. Very good. We'll move on to our next item. Item 3, consent agenda. These items are to be approved in one motion. Council members or members of the public may request these consent items to be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent as written.
I'll second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. And I would like to make one correction. I'll kind of look to our city attorney. This was my correction that I failed to mention. On the agenda under regular business, we are pulling item D. So could we note that for the record? And do we need another motion to approve the agenda?
No, that's fine.
Okay, we'll approve as such. Very good. Which will take us to regular business, item 4A. Discussion and potential action to adopt resolution number 2019, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, authorizing the purchase of 8 flock safety license plate recognition cameras and 24 months of software support for a total cost of $32,000 for the Brawley Police Department, 100% reimbursement by the Homeland Security Investigations Fund, HSI. Chief.
Good evening, Mayor. Robert Sawyer, your Police Chief, honorable members of council. I'm here tonight with another exciting opportunity for us to enhance our public safety offerings to the city of Brawley. That's 100% reimbursable, as you mentioned, through the Homeland Security Investigations Group. We have participated in license plate recognition cameras for approximately 2 years. In your handout, you'll see the staff report that kind of outlines the number of successes that we've had with the existing system, which is a different vendor. However, we've had one more success as of this morning. Our officers did locate a stolen vehicle within our city limits and arrested 2 individuals solely on the use of license plate recognition equipment and software that was located in our vehicles. The system has paid dividends in the long run as far as public safety enhancement and our recovery of stolen automobiles and the arrest of several violators as outlined in the staff report. What you have before you tonight is an expansion of the existing regional project. This is specific to Brawley. It is an opportunity for us to purchase 8 solar-powered license plate recognition cameras to be mounted at various locations throughout the city of our choosing. This covers the installation, all of the air card services that it's a reoccurring cost through Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever the carrier is of choice, and the camera itself along with all the software on the back end of things. It's a turnkey project for a period of 2 years. These cameras are not quite as industrialized as the cameras that we've been utilizing in the regional program, but this has a personal touch to it. It allows us to focus on key areas of the city where we see spikes in criminal behavior or concerns for whatever the reason is. Our hope is that we will be able to utilize these 8 cameras over the course of a 90-day period and potentially roll out an expansion of the program and possibly couple or partner with some of our local businesses and HOAs. Flock Group is a privately owned industry that is looking for and primarily focuses on HOA groups across the country. I came to be aware of them through an article that was published in the California Police Chiefs Association's magazine by the Redlands Police Department. Their assistant chief, Travis Martinez, wrote an article on how they have utilized Flock safety cameras in conjunction with the other vendor which we utilize to cut down on crime in their area. And they've seen a reduction in crime of about 34% in the targeted areas where Flock safety cameras have been deployed. So we're hopeful that we'll see something similar to that in our city as well. I've also spoke with the Los Angeles Sheriff Department in my initial research for the regional system, the regional LPR system that we had. I spoke with Sergeant John Gaw, who's in charge of their technology division for LASO, and they are currently testing Flock safety cameras as well. They've had a very high success rate with them, very comparable to the commercialized offering of the other vendor that we're both utilizing, with the key component that this is more for a residential area or for the less traveled roadways than freeways and things of that nature, that being the difference between the other vendor and this current vendor. So there's a lot to be offered with this. They are deployed in desert environments in Nevada and Arizona. They have held up to the test of time in those conditions, so we're hopeful that we don't have any issues with them. One of the unique offerings, in addition to the 100% coverage for it being an all-inclusive product, is if one of these systems goes down, they monitor each of the cameras at their headquarters. They dispatch their own repair and recovery team. They will replace 1 camera a year at no cost to the city. If a second camera is needed due to vandalism or theft, it's a $350 charge per camera. So it's a pretty affordable system for what it could do to us in terms of public safety.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. If you don't mind remaining there, I'll open it up to council. Any questions, comments? On the topic?
Do you already have an idea of where you're going to place each camera?
So yes, we came up with what we refer to as a master plan. We have some additional equipment that was provided to us by the Drug Enforcement Administration that would go along the lines of the more commercialized system which we utilize, which is Vigilant Solutions. And we have an agreement with DEA to go ahead and mount that equipment. But the master plan covers approximately 60 camera deployments throughout the city, and that would encompass all entrances and exits of the city, so we would be notified anytime a violent offender would be entering the city, a stolen vehicle, an Amber Alert or anything like that for public safety purposes. And then there's key locations throughout the city that have been identified, one being Cattle Call Park. Things of a significance to the city. In future deployments, we would like to have equipment in that area, so if there's a vandalism that occurs or a crime occurs in that area, it allows us to go back and have leads to follow up on. So we do have a master plan. Currently, it's about 60 cameras. This is nowhere near that. There's an ongoing cost that's associated with any technology. So that's kind of what we're always looking for creative ways to fund this outside of the general fund, and here's our first opportunity to do so.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Chief, the only one I had just obviously is durability, or mentioning a little bit if a camera goes down, so that's fantastic. You know, that's part of the program. But are there, like, outside of what we've tested here, durability here in the valley with our conditions, wind, sand, dirt, that type of thing?
We're unique in location in some of the natural environments that we have to expose our equipment to. There are like conditions in Arizona and Nevada, but nothing that's 100% comparable to what we have here currently. Again, this is a unique environment, as you all know.
You're
Yeah.
a wonderful spokesperson for
That's one way to put it.
We have a wonderful opportunity here to be the first to test it in this particular environment.
I see.
Although in similar environments, it works well. One of the concerns I had was the solar power. We obviously do not suffer from a lack of sun exposure here in Imperial County. But Redlands, for example, the assistant chief that I spoke to up there, even on their days where they have rain, as long as there's 4 hours of sun, the cameras continue to operate for a 24-hour period. So given that, I'm fairly confident that we're not going to suffer any type of lack of exposure to the sun or ability to power the cameras.
those items, but it's just that the sun is so hot that it does actually fry the solar panels. But we'll find out, right?
And so that is a concern, but again, they do replace up to 1 camera per year free of charge. If we notice that we're replacing several, then we'll have to look for alternatives. In our commercial, and I use the term commercial setting because the other system, the Vigilant Solution System, that's employed throughout the county. We do utilize solar powered equipment there. It's on a much larger basis. It's on a much similar to what you see around the plaza when we deploy our sign and message boards. So we do have some ALPR equipped trailers throughout the county that run on solar power, and we have not experienced any issues with those. But again, different manufacturer, kind of a different scale of deployment as well.
Really, they should be paying us as a proving ground. For
I've had that conversation. Unfortunately, I was not successful.
What's the anticipated date of your installation?
So from the date that I received the purchase order, should this be approved tonight, it's a 30-day rollout. They will come out and they will actually install an 8-foot pole at any location that we want to have the camera mounted. If we choose to mount it on existing infrastructure, they will do that as well. So for example, if we wanted to hang it over a traffic signal mast, we could do that and attach it to one of our existing infrastructures. Or they will come out and put a completely new pole in, they will mount it, they will aim it, and they will program it all within a period of 30 days to have all 8 deployed. So it's a pretty quick solution for us to get out to the field, much quicker than some of the other options.
Do you have some kind of standing MOU with Caltrans that you can use their mast without having to pull permits, or is that a?
Therein lies the rub. So we would be looking to deploy this within the right-of-ways that are owned by the city of Bullpen. We do have some conversation and open dialogue with Caltrans. As you can imagine, that's a slow-going process, and we're hopeful that in the future, given the fact that this is solar power, that will aid us in getting this deployed onto Caltrans right-of-ways, such as 86 south of Legion Road and things coming into the city, First and Main, things of that nature that would be high-traffic areas. We would certainly be interested in having some equipment deployed at. The biggest concern with Caltrans is anytime we attach anything to their equipment, we have to provide certain studies. We have to provide certain assurances, one being that we would pull our own power, which requires an electrical engineer to come in, provide an engineered drawing of where the power is coming from. So we're hopeful that the Flock Solution camera offers us an ability to maybe fast-track that. But currently, it would be on city-owned right-of-ways. That's our only option this time until we get some further clarification from Caltrans.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Unless there's any other discussion, I'll go ahead and we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that item as written.
Second. We have a motion, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go to item 4B. 4B is discussion and potential action to approve amendment number 10 to the Imperial County Humane Society Agreement for Animal Sheltering Services in the amount of $72,000 per year. And the backup materials on pages 89 to 91. I think Guillermo Silas to work
Hi,
with.
good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. This item is related to the agreement with the Humane Society that the city started on 2009 and has been extended annually. And this time, the Humane Society that is providing sheltering services for the city is proposing an increase in $1,000 per month, which is a total of $72,000 per year. Let me just mention that when we first entered into this agreement 10 years ago, the charge was $4,500 per month. So in 10 years, they have increased $500 only, and they are proposing based on the amount of animals that Brawley is taken to the Humane Society, and also the cost adjustments and increases. So they are proposing this increase.
Very good, and obviously the letter, backup material explains the rest. Guillermo, I know in the past we had some numbers too, just out of curiosity. Do we have the number of animals that have been?
It varies, but it's about 20 dogs per week, and a lot of cats that they are no longer taking because they don't have space for that. So, but we are the city that take more animals to the Humane Society.
It's quite a bit, yeah. It's a
Right.
high number, so well, I'm sorry, questions?
Nothing to bark about.
Nothing. Comments?
So
So
are you
you-
still, I was just gonna clarify on the cats.
Yeah, I
What's
was
the
gonna-
situation with the cats.
So per our city ordinance, cats are free roaming, and there is no trapping obligation for cats. We do have a real issue with active reproduction, and because there are limited programs in place in the nonprofit universe for trap, neuter, and release, the impact of those efforts is really limited. In the last 12 months, Guillermo and I have been invited to visit the Humane Society facility to better understand the impacts that the volume of cats that they were receiving by animal control, what impact it was creating on the facility. It was literally ceiling to floor cat carriers and an overwhelming number of loose cats in enclosed areas. So we work cooperatively with them to handle sick or cats who pose a danger to other animals or otherwise a public health threat. We have much limited the number of cats that we are taking in next year's budget proposal. We have a very, very modest set aside for the first time for trap, neuter, and release at $2,500 per year. The cost of spay or neuter is $40 if the Humane Society takes them to Mexicali to have the medical procedure. So what we're trying to do is make a small dent. It is a regional discussion. We are the only jurisdiction that was taking in cats at all. And the demands to pick up cats are much greater than the Humane Society's ability to receive the cats. So until the capacity of that facility is changed, our ability as a city to address resident demands will rely on city ordinance and only take in those that are the most significant risk either to themselves or others.
All right, thank you.
All right, with that, unless there's any further discussion, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the item.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, no abstentions, we'll move to the next item, which will be 4C. And this will be discussion of potential action to approve professional engineering services agreement with the Holt Group Incorporated in the amount of $28,778 for the design upgrade to the Integrate Plaza circuitry for Main Street Safety and Decorative Lighting Project. Backup material on pages 92 through 108.
Again, Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. This item is related to the project that was prepared, the design by Somas some years ago, that was included the lighting or the lights for safety and lighting in the plaza areas north and south. The plans were completed and they are ready. However, recently Parks and Recreation and Public Works did a research on the needs of the plazas for other activities than lighting, like provide electricity for events, like Christmas events, or for mariachi night events, and also for sprinklers. So it was discovered also that there's some other items that can be used, like an existing pedestal, electrical pedestal, that can be reused if it's upgraded instead of replacing with a more expensive. Also, some conduits underneath the main street were discovered that can be utilized for that purpose. And we thought that would be a good idea just to apply some amount to do a redesign and upgrade of the project to include all the problems or address the problems that are on the North and South Plaza that will make it easier for later on for maintenance, for irrigation purposes, to make it electrical, also for supply electricity for those events, and to fix all the problems that conduit, cables that are running without conduits underneath on the grass to feed the kiosk, and so many advantages instead of having another project later on to do this type of repairs. So we can integrate and have just one project, including and fixing most of the problems that exist currently. There's also savings, as the materials mentioned, around the $75,000 minus the cost of this redesign, but still will be some savings there. Plus the elimination of other electrical items that are not up to code or that makes, pose a risk. So it is a staff recommendation to fix it with this project.
Very good, thank you. And clearly, I would say even with the difference, is still a pretty good savings, so good step. Any questions, comments from council on this topic?
Just happy to see it's moving forward and we're actually saving money this time on something, so that's always good news.
Right. Yes, there will be some delay because this redesign and then construction, but we anticipate 3 months for this redesign portion, and later on advertise and move forward with construction. So by January, we should be starting or before construction.
Thank you, Guillermo. Unless there's anything else, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, we do have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Guillermo. We'll
Thank
move
you.
to item 4E, which will be discussion and potential action to approve resolution number 2019, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, supporting balanced energy solutions and maintaining local control of energy solutions. Pages 111 through 114 for backup.
Mayor Wharton, we had hoped for the Government Affairs Officer, Deborah McGarry, to join us. She started this evening down in El Centro at their City Council meeting and then was going to make her way north. I am wondering if it would be possible to delay this item till perhaps her arrival, or
Sure.
the remainder of the agenda is handled.
And that was briefed accordingly, correct? So what we'll do is we'll hold on that item, and we'll continue through the agenda, and hopefully Ms. McGarry will be able to make it in here for that presentation. So we'll hold on E, we'll move to item 4F. And this is a discussion and potential action for the council here for the public meeting schedule in August for 2019, which is typically history. In the past, we have gone dark in the month of August and kept councils remained open for the potential of special meetings in that event. But maybe as we go into that discussion, I'll turn to our city manager. Unless are there any topics that
There are a few topics that could potentially be ready for council action in August. We have one which is a pending the submittal of bonds for a land development project in our city limits for Malin Park. We are expecting those bonds to be presented within the next week or so, and we have a written request from the applicant for consideration of a special meeting in August if they can pull it together, with the hope of taking advantage of the market. We also could potentially in late August be ready with the audit, but we don't have a specific date yet. So really what we're hoping to determine with the help of council is there any openness to it? Should a business matter arise? And if so, we had a preliminary, preliminary comments about weeks that would be absolutely not workable because of schedules and availability, but we're wondering if late August was a possibility or anywhere else during the month, if there are any windows.
Thank you, Rosanna. Maybe could I open with this then? Maybe consideration for if the need for a special meeting were to arise, whether it be something like the budget, as mentioned, or the item that you just mentioned, would council be open to maintaining the openness? We'll consider ourselves dark unless we call a special meeting, and if we do, maybe targeting what would have been the second meeting, August 20th, a Tuesday night. Is that late enough into the month? I know that, later would be the 27th, but I might have a travel challenge on that last week of the month, so I don't know.
Yeah, the 20th, I think I can make that work.
Sam, if we were to have a special meeting on the 20th.
I think it's okay.
It'll work for me too.
Okay, maybe.
The only thing is that I was wondering about the other one with the bonds. Are they gonna want a meeting earlier than that, or is that
With
work?
the 20th.
I think they understand that council is typically dark. Their hope is consideration in the month of August. I'm sure they'll look.
We'll consider.
We might have, and as always, Rosanna, we might have other items or whatnot, so maybe, I think what we're communicating at this point, as of this moment, we are considering ourselves dark in August, but if we do call for a special meeting for all the aforementioned topics or reasons that we have the preset date of the 20th as a potential special meeting.
Great.
Okay. Good.
Sure.
All right, unless there's any further discussion from council, that's item 4F. That will take us to item 5, our informational reports. And as always, this is available in our packet here, council packet, as well as to the public, our attendance summaries and minutes for the City of Brawley boards, commissions from April 1st through June 30th, 2019. Any comments? Seeing none, we will move now to our departmental reports. That's under item 6. 6A is the update on the emergency construction of the Brawley Water Treatment Plant by the Public Works Director.
Yes, today we had the pre-construction meeting for the water treatment plant project. The emergency continues, but today we met with the contractor, all the paperwork is done, and they are ordering the material, and we schedule meetings with them for when the material and submittals and job drawings are ready, so we will meet again. And then we will have to wait until the material is fabricated, and then they will come down here to do the final measurements, to do the final adjustments, and then start with the demolition and construction. It is expected to happen in October, the demolition and construction, but that is consistent with the desire of the water plant chief that wait until the summer season is over to be able to handle lower flows and to be less inconveniences for the public. And at the same time, there's enough time for the fabrication of the parts. So that officially the project started today with the notice to proceed.
Very good. Any other questions from council? Our Public Works Director, thank you very much for the report, the update. I guess we'll, do you have another item, Guillermo? Make sure.
Right, I would like to make another
Sure.
report regarding the traffic signal at Main Street and Cesar Chavez. On July 2nd, finally, the fourth company, St. Francis Electrical, they did an assessment. They provided a report, and they found several issues with the existing cabinet. Finally, they are recommending, due to the safety and the difficulty to obtain the very old parts or style, So a full replacement, and they will provide, hopefully during this week, a quote including an alternative to provide a temporary cabinet for rental in the meantime that the cabinet is fabricated, so we can have this temporary cabinet to make it work the signals until the new one arrives and is replaced. So hopefully this week we will have the final quote for that. But we have the assessment already, so they already know what is the problem, and they are recommending full replacement.
Maybe that's where we can mount one of the 8 flock safety cameras, since we're going to do all that work. But thank you, Guillermo. Any questions on that? Anything else? Very
No,
good.
Just at this time, we don't know what the amount, the cost is gonna be, or do we?
No, we have a preliminary from another company, but looks like based on the assessment that this company did, it will be different. Because the first one has a lot of exclusions, like no concrete work, no anchoring.
No sweating, no.
No sweating, and now that we are in the summertime, it's different. So yeah, it was like a preliminary. Also, they are changing some of the parts that the first company was recommending. They are proposing different ones because they told us that they would like to have the existing one as a spare parts, so they can be used somewhere else. And they are proposing a different model to be able to make it easier in the future to replace. So it's different. So it looks like this is more in-depth assessment, so it will be most likely different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Guillermo. Next item under department reports, 6B will be an update on fireworks ordinance enforcement efforts by our police chief, Robert Sawyer, and our interim fire chief, Mike York.
We should do a dance-off right here, just like that.
Good evening again, Robert Sawyer, the police chief. For 2019, we saw a decrease, fortunately, in the number of fireworks that at least were reported on the 4th of July and overall. So this year, we responded to 33 incidents, with the majority of those 33 being officer-initiated, meaning that they observed the firework, they responded to the area where it was believed to have came from, and they took the appropriate action. Conversely, in 2018, we responded to 60 calls just on the 4th of July. Wow. Overall, I think we're at a total of 84 incidents since the time that fireworks are approved by ordinance. I believe that to be June 28th through the 4th. I could be wrong on the exact dates. Mm-hmm. But our number of reported incidents are down this year versus the prior year. That doesn't mean that there's less fireworks within the city, and we understand that, but the number of reportable offenses were down. Significant to this year, 8 enforcement actions were taken, 8 enforcement citations were issued. Those are administrative in nature. They are considered misdemeanors under the Brawley Municipal Code. Those individuals were provided a court date, and they will go through the administrative process with the city attorney and the city of Brawley, with potential fines for a first-time offense of $100 and going up for each offense thereafter up to a total of $500 cumulative on the 5th occurrence. So I think that's significant to report. There were a number of large seizures of illegal fireworks that came usually after an officer arrived on scene and people ran into houses, and then the officer would collect what the remaining illegal fireworks were on the street. That definition can be found in Brawley Municipal Code 19H.5 that covers all the rockets, anything that's aerial based, and metal core sparklers and things of that nature as to what the definition of an illegal firework is. Overall, somewhat successful. Again, it's hard to combat these particular incidents because it's a festive day. Everyone wants to be involved in festivities, and it's very difficult for us to limit the exposure of some of the illegal and not safe and not sane fireworks they have access to here locally. In addition to the law enforcement activities, there are a number of fire activities that Chief York can brief you on at the end of this. If you have any questions for me regarding the law enforcement side, I'd be happy to answer those.
Chief, I have a question with respect to the enforcement action on those 8 incidents where you issued a citation. It's a misdemeanor citation. So they're going to court, and there's the potential of a $100 fine, right? So that's if they go to court and they're. But in those cases, was like an officer, did they witness those?
Yes.
They did?
So in each of those 8 events, the officer witnessed the individual lighting the firework or setting the firework off, and that's what allowed them to take the enforcement action. Any violation under the municipal code by nature is a misdemeanor. and it's reducible to an infraction with a fine attached to it based on the city attorney's preference, is my understanding of the code. And I don't want to give any legal advice, but that's my understanding as I read it right now.
That's what the ordinance says.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And that $100 fine for the first offense, that's by ordinance? And we talked about $500 and $1,000 at one point. Those are maximums, those have to be after a certain number of offenses?
Yes, and we can increase the fine by amending the ordinance. For example, in Calipatria, the fine is $1,000 for the first offense. Right. And Calipatria Police, for the first time in several years, actually, I think they wrote 5 citations over the 4th of July weekend. So
I thought
they have to pay to the city.
I kind of thought we were moving that direction.
We haven't had time to amend the
Okay,
ordinance.
so that would, I think that would be, it would help pay for the added law enforcement needs over that weekend.
I can do that math, sure, yeah.
Good evening, council, city staff, Mike York, interim fire chief. The fire department had a very busy night, the 4th of July. In the time period between 6 p.m. 4th of July and 6 a.m. the 5th of July, we responded to a total of 13 incidents, 8 of which were medical aids. 6 of which were medical aids. We did have 7 fires during this time period. One was completely unrelated, although it did draw quite a bit of resources. Of the 7 fire incidents that we had in the time period, 4 incidents were directly related to firework use. 3 of those were reported by witnesses as illegal fireworks use, and the 4th was undetermined. The remainder, the 3 incidents that we had, were related to disposal of fireworks, whether they were illegal or not. They were trash can, rubbish, receptacle fires due to improper disposal. That evening, we placed a unit in service with a senior firefighter and one of our reserve firefighters to patrol areas. We gave no specific direction. They patrolled. They attempted to patrol 3 of the neighborhoods in the city. Because of our high call volume, they were rapidly pulled off to assist with actual incidents. During the patrol, they made several interactions with the public where they counseled the public concerning the city ordinance and provided education about safe and sane usage versus the illegal fireworks and general safety involving fireworks. They did witness one interaction was directly witnessed of illegal use of fireworks, and our patrol unit referred it to PD, who responded and handled the matter.
Very good. Thank you, Interim Chief York. Any questions on the fire side?
I was just wondering about injuries. Were there any severe injuries that you know of due to
I
fireworks?
apologize for not adding that. There were no injuries reported during this time on any incident, and the medical aids that we responded to were unrelated.
Are the seizures, are those given to the high school for football games, or?
Unfortunately not.
No, unfortunately.
The fireworks that were seized by PD were turned over to the fire department, and we have a resident bomb tech. When they have their training, they will take it out to the desert to their bomb range, and they will dispose of it along with their other ordnance.
Just to comment, I did notice, I felt there were less fireworks maybe around the town. At least in our area of town, I thought there were less, and they didn't start with the illegals 3 or 4 days in advance. I didn't think, occasionally we had one go off, but I think most of them were pretty good about that in our area anyway. We did lose a lot of dogs, a lot of animals I think got out. They get traumatized by it. I felt there were less. I drove around town, I saw your units responding, I saw the police units responding. I tried not to interfere. I just wanted to observe what was going on and see what was happening out there. I think it's citywide that we have the use of the illegals. Now, the safe and sane looked pretty good. Most people were enjoying themselves. They looked pretty good. But we do still have a lot of illegals being utilized, the illegal fireworks. And it's really difficult to tell where they're going off at. You can kind of tell areas. You can almost see houses, but you can't really see people really lighting them off if they're in their backyards. and that's an ongoing issue for us. So maybe with the law enforcement's drones, that'll be different in the future. However, then they'll probably fire at the drones.
I'd be afraid to lose a drone.
Yeah, then they'll be shooting at the drones, I think.
I've
But
had
no, but
that.
I felt like it was better this year than it had been, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Just out of curiosity, just both our chiefs, kind of my final question, was there any relation to the 8 citations on the enforcement action side and the incidents that were witnessed, or the fires, for example, any of the incidents on the fire side, did any of those overlap?
No.
Okay, those were separate. Very good. Whenever a fire started and then, somebody witnessed at the same
And
time.
if I might add a couple things that I overlooked, I apologize for that. We did deploy a sergeant and 3 additional officers in addition to the patrol team with a specific intent of focusing on firework enforcement. So there's a cost to the city that Councilmember Hamby brought up that would be nice to be recoverable through some of the fines.
Yeah.
Fines currently, as I understand the ordinance, are defined in 19F.3, and they're specific to all Brawley City ordinances. Not just the fireworks, so maybe that's something moving forward. If we were to rewrite the firework ordinance itself, maybe we could look at fines specific to fireworks, but currently that's not delineated within the ordinance itself.
Many years
I'm sorry,
back,
how
my-
many fires did you say we had?
We had a total of 7. 4 incidents were directly related to firework use. One was a fence fire. I don't have damage reports yet. And one was a brush fire that involved some sheds in the backyard of a residence. And the remainders were mostly trash receptacles or uninvolved brush.
Yeah. My brother, many years back, my brother, lit some fireworks, safe and sane. This is years back, but he put them in a trash can next to his house, and that caught on fire, and he woke up to a house filled with smoke, and one of his kids hadn't woken up. Who knows what would have happened to him? But yeah, those things happen. So I think education goes a long way still. But maybe in the future, I'm a real proponent for video, for people seeing like how things can go wrong, and maybe we can do that in the future before the 4th of July next year, where we're educating the public on the cost and the damage maybe that was done, and short story, 3 minutes, and maybe get that message out there on social media so people can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the resources it takes to take, yeah. So
Proper
anyway,
disposal methods.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Very good. Good report. Thank you very much, Chiefs. We'll go to our next departmental report. 6C is update on cost recovery analysis from the Brawley Fire Department, false alarm calls, and emergency medical services. Backup material is pages 144 and 148.
Good evening, Mayor Wharton and fellow council members. Tyler Salcido, Finance Director of the City of Brawley. In your packet, there's an analysis for cost recovery, full cost recovery of the services that are provided related to EMS calls and false alarm calls. That was prepared by DTA. Interim Chief York and the fire department provided the data behind some of those that went into analysis, provided the response time estimates, and worked on with finance on a number of training hours per year and other non-chargeable hours, and the number of staff per call. That was generated out of the fire department. And finance, we provided all the salary and benefits and payroll costs that went into that analysis to come up with that fully burden rate, hourly rate of, what was it, $57.40. In the report, you'll see full cost for labor and benefits. For an EMS call is $160.72, and false alarm calls for $137.76. We are currently seeking direction, if council so wishes, on bringing back an ordinance, and hopefully by the next September meeting. And if so, what of that percentage full or a certain percentage of cost recovery the council would like to see taken. And along those lines, if we do go down that route, I would like to work with legal on potentially seeing some sort of escalator clause, because as you're well aware, employers' costs continue to rise year after year after year. So instead of having to revisit it through the ordinance. I don't know if that's possible, but that's something I wanted to approach. And if there's any questions on the data or anything in that memo there.
Thank you for that, and I know, I'm sure we'll be directing some questions here and comments. Just offhand, just from the backup material and the work done by DTA also, just making it clear also for the public, I know this information obviously is available to them, but this is one of the state exemptions, correct, of not having to go and take an initiative to the taxpayers, just to make that clear.
Yeah, there's 7 exemptions, and this was one of them, which a charge imposed for specific government services or product provided directly to the payer that is not provided to those that aren't charged. So if it's specific to the service, to whatever that incident was, so you're allowed to charge a fee.
Absolutely. It was very detailed. So council will open it up for questions.
This, I believe it was Chief Sawyer that said in a previous meeting that 80% of users or of residents, you will not be able to go in for cost recovery. Is that right?
I don't believe that one came from Sawyer.
No.
Chief Sawyer, excuse me. But from what I know,
Medicare.
Sorry.
The Medicare reimbursement reference.
Medi-Cal, Medicare reimbursements, we're not allowed to bill them for this. And that is approximately, from my experience, just from the hospital, that was over 80% of our business at El Centro Regional, and I believe it to be the same throughout the Imperial Valley. That was related to the EMS calls, I would say, more so than false alarm calls. And so if you figure 15% of the 1,064 EMS calls last year at $160 a charge, that would roughly bring about $25,000 plus to the budget back on the EMS portion only.
Yeah, you think about that, I mean, depending how we direct that money, I mean, that pays for a lot of things. Memberships to different, I mean, it's a lot of expense that we have, but it pays for chamber membership on behalf of the city, it pays for IBDC, but, whatever it is, right? So there's, it offsets cost.
So this technical memorandum was part of the deliverables that were identified in strategic planning and budget workshops to take a look at cost recovery. This is the first document, the foundation document that we would use to proceed with ordinance preparation. And our hope is to get a little bit of feedback from council as to what your appetite is for preparing an ordinance for action in the future that takes into consideration these 2 specific services. And I know in briefing with some members of the council, there was a question as to a prior item that came to the body for false alarm calls. That was burglar alarm related and the PD portion of false alarms. What is referenced here, we could actually have Captain York perhaps give a little bit of a description of what these tend to look like as calls.
For the false alarm calls, what these tend to look like in general are residences and businesses that employ an alarm system that generates a call directly. We actually receive quite a few false alarms each year, and one of the side benefits of setting up a cost recovery besides recouping funds is that we do have a number of habitual false alarm activations, certain locations that are good for a few false alarm calls per month, and by establishing a billing process, it's recouping funds, but it also gives more of an incentive for these agencies or these residences to repair their alarm system or look at whatever is occurring within their alarm.
And just as a matter of a technical matter, the difference between burglar alarm and a fire alarm, it's how the sensor sends in or sends a call into dispatch, or is that
correct? Usually on a unified house alarm system, the burglar alarms are usually tied to doors and windows.
Right.
Fire alarms are tied to smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, Many of the new ones have heat sensors, and then of course there's push station activations, which we do get quite frequently. And when those come in as push station, of course they elicit a higher tempo of call because of that's a live person pushed it. Of course, we have a good portion of those are falsely activated by children or the owner not understanding their panel.
Understood. Very good. And I guess outside of that, thank you for that, Captain. I want to maybe redirect this to our finance director. With this thorough work, prepared under this memorandum and reading it, we can see the numbers, the rates, and the breakdown, and the cost per incident, and perhaps I suppose what we would end up charging. Is this considered pretty much customary with the agencies, the many agencies and municipalities that do have a fee schedule and charge?
I know for one that City of Calexico in the Valley charges, has this fee schedules implemented. Not sure of the others in the Valley, but it is across the state. Yes, there are some. It's not uncommon for sure.
And as I recall in the research gathered, City of Calexico's rates, we can return with a comparison of other jurisdictions, but as I recall it, they were significantly higher than what we capture.
Yeah. You can speak to that.
But
About why those
but this is
reasons
based
are-
on our.
Correct.
Ours.
Yes.
That's- yeah.
So theirs may be higher for different reasons. right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why I want to be, I know it's a little bit general, but when I meant by customary, just demonstrating again with this information carrying forward, it's customary, we're using this as sort of our nexus study, if you will, to
Yes,
move
yes,
forward with the fee
this-
schedule. It's not some arbitrary,
That is correct, yes.
number that we think that there's
Yeah.
some kind of quote profit. This is cost recovery at best, and then with that, my last question would be the collection rate. Is there any information on that? Because I think that that's another thing that I think we as council, you cannot look at these as, oh, that's the answer. It's this times 1,000 incidents a year. It doesn't work like that, right?
I have no hard facts or data to support any type of collection rates. I would say in general, on the private insurance portion, that's pretty, more than likely we'll collect on those. Of course, like you said before, we can't even bill for Medicare or Medi-Cal.
Right.
The homeowners, it's probably be like a squeaky wheel type thing.
It'd be challenging.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
I just wanted to comment that we initiated this a while back in looking at how we could bring revenues into the city. So I think that it's a viable project, and I would suggest that we go for try to get the full cost recovery if we're looking at, putting an ordinance together. That would be my suggestion.
May I suggest, just for keeping it round figures, like 160 and 137, just not to get the full, just to make
sense.
it.
There's some psychology around that, actually.
159.99.
Yeah. No,
If
that
it's
would
over
work.
50 cents, you go up.
Today.
On
Yeah.
the-
Special
Yeah,
rate.
special deal.
Okay.
I think with that, that's certainly something we can include in the motion, but I want to make sure we have all questions or concerns answered. But it sounds like, obviously, as we move forward in the process, Rosanna, that we'll have ample opportunity. If there's additional comment, it's going to have to go through the whole ordinance process, so readings, et cetera. So is there any other questions? Not? If we're ready, unless there's questions, we can move forward with, I guess, the direction. I think the direction is it sounds like we have a pretty good majority to move forward with the preparation, so thank you.
If I may just.
Yes,
One
absolutely.
last quick report, since I'm up here. Prior meeting for the Motorola upgrade was presented, and at the time, I had mentioned that it was about a 4.57 interest rate. I signed the PO this week, yesterday, today's Tuesday, yesterday. I was able to work with Motorola. We are currently at 3.29%. So I think that's a pretty decent rate. Wanted to keep you guys updated on that. And overall, for the city's portion of interest, so if we went the full 5 year, it's a 5-year term, interest would be about $2,340, so.
Great.
Yeah.
Good job.
We do want to note that the amount that was financed was reduced due to the receipt
Yes.
of an asset forfeiture contribution that we'd been awaiting for some time, and we were fortunate enough to have the timing aligned before we financed a larger sum than necessary, so.
Cool.
I'm sorry, I thought,
Bonus.
yeah.
Okay.
Forgot to mention that.
Yes.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, our finance director. Thank you. We'll move to item 7, which are city council member reports, and we'll begin with council member Hamby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was able to enjoy some bit of fireworks show on the, I guess it was the 2nd of July, before I went out of town after our council meeting. I was in Flagstaff area for the 4th of July. I got to play some music to open for the Flagstaff Symphony before their patriotic concert at the Pepsi Amphitheater in Flagstaff, along with my brother and sister-in-law. And that was a beautiful place to be on the 4th of July. It was only about 75 degrees or so. And then a really spectacular fireworks show that night in Williams. I received some calls over the last couple of weeks regarding the traffic signal that Mr. Cias talked about. And so that's good news to hear that we're on a path to repair there. I had some concerned citizens talk to me about some trees at Cattle Call Park. There was some social media buzz about someone coming out of the trees and accosting joggers. And we discussed that today during the Parks and Rec Commission meeting. And so the suggestion was made by certain residents to maybe thin out or clear out some of those big trees to not provide a harbor for people to hide out in and come running out of as people jog by. I attended last night the North End Action Council, their first public meeting that was at the library in Calapat. It was an interesting meeting, a good group of people there that are concerned about the north end of the valley, including Brawley, but some of the towns that feel that they're forgotten, Calapat and Island and Bombay Beach. So one of the topics of discussion was their water rates in Calapat, and I learned a few things that I didn't know, such as that their water treatment facility, or at least their water utility, is owned privately, and so their water rates are much higher than what we enjoy here. So there was a real desire and a call for people to come together and do something about that, to either get it back into the city's possession so it's not privately owned. Of course, there's a lot of money that can be spent doing that. But anyway, that was an interesting meeting. And I think that's it for my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamby. Councilmember Couchman.
I attended the library board meeting in Luke's place. He had to go to planning commission, so I filled in on that one. Very interesting meeting with the library. It always is. It's always a nice meeting. I also attended a meeting with Alex Cardenas of IID, more to thank him for the canal issues that we were running into on the undergrounding of a canal, and because he was kind of instrumental in pushing that with IID. I had lunch with him and talked with him briefly about that and moving forward. And I also, I set my fireworks off on the 3rd. They were all safe and sane. And I also at that time rescued a local dog. At the time, I was able to rescue somebody's dog and everything. So everything worked out pretty well in that evening. And everything else has been really well. I've been noticing a lot of activity, police activity. We've had a lot of that. And I guess a lot of fire and service calls for health and other medical type stuff going on around town. Appears business is kind of slow. I noticed some of the businesses have complained to me that business is slow, mainly restaurants, that type of thing. Starbucks even says that they're a little bit slow now because of summer, but they expect that to recover in September. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else to report. Thank you.
Go to Councilmember Nava.
Keep it real brief, but, you know, we've been able to enjoy a fairly comfortable summer. It hasn't been that hot, you know, there have been days that have been really hot, but I've enjoyed it. Hope everybody had a safe 4th. So, at any rate, I did meet with the senior center group here in Brawley, and it was interesting because I showed up the other day to provide a city update of things that are taking place here, and I was just listening to them. I was kind of halfway into their meeting before I was presenting, and they were talking about their previous speaker, and their previous speaker was there to talk about, you know, healthy eating and less sugar consumption and less sodium intake, and then it was my turn to speak. And I showed up with some gifts, and it was like mazapanes and Hershey's bars, and they were really happy with that. So they were like, all right. So, but anyway, so they listened to the update, and I just, you know, again reiterated some of what's been taking place within the city, and so I think it's really important. They're a really good source of people to get the message out to the public. So I think it's really important that we reach out to that group. They're really a fun group, and they stay active, and they like to talk to their friends. And they do it the old-fashioned way. They still call and talk, and that's a good thing. So aside from that, I did participate in some recent meetings, very recent meetings with some business owners here in the city of Brawley, and I'll provide a future update, but it goes back to the topic of slower business and some things that we can do to help incentivize people to get them out there. So I'll bring that back later, but this may or may not be our last meeting before we go dark, and if it is, I just want to wish you all a happy summer vacation if you're taking that. Be safe out there, enjoy your time with your families, your friends, and I thank you all very much for everything that you're doing. So thanks again.
Thank you, Councilmember Nava. We'll go to our Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, well, the 4th of July was kind of an eventful one for me this year. I don't know, we have a new dog, and he's not really a puppy anymore. I think he's about a year old. And then our older dog, but boy, I don't know, it was just really bad for our dogs this year. And so much so that we decided to take a drive to go look around and see what was happening. And we did see a lot of really nice fireworks, but I think they're illegal because they were the real big ones like you see out at IBC. So I don't think those are the ones they sell at the stands. But by the time we got back to our house, just a little story, not a long one, but by the time I got back to my house, we opened the door to the washroom where we had put the dogs, and they almost basically tore apart our cabinet underneath the, next to the washer and dryer. They got so scared, they just wanted to get out, and they even unplugged my refrigerator, my extra refrigerator that I have in the washroom. So thank God, Julio noticed that, he's good at. But anyway, we couldn't leave after that, and it was just a very crazy weekend. And Julio and I said, maybe they should outlaw fireworks in the city. I said, well, you know, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that don't like the fireworks in the city, but there's a lot of people that enjoy it. And I mean, it'd just be nice if people just stuck to the safe ones and went out to the IVC or Calipatria and enjoyed those shows. But that was my, I just was totally taken aback by I have a picture, as I'm not exaggerating, of all the destruction they did in my washroom. Other than that, I did manage to get out of town for a few days to San Diego. I think everybody else did too, and enjoyed a little bit of cool weather. And then I came back, and I did go downtown, and I visited a little bit with some of the local businesses and some of their concerns. Still pretty much the same with the downtown. They'd like to see improvements, you know, in our downtown area. So I know the chamber's working with them also. They have a downtown merchant committee. So I encouraged them to continue meeting and see, you know, if they could share ideas with us, and we'd help any way we can. And other than that, I was not too happy to come back to 115, 120 degrees, but it is what it is. But thank you all, and I hope you all enjoy your summer vacation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I'll be quick on not a whole lot since the last meeting. I spent most of my time spending time with my family, which as the kids have grown and have been actually even out of state, it was special for us, so we were able to spend some great family time. I happen to be in the San Diego area, so I also met with about 50 concerned citizens at the Beachcomber, and took care of the complaints there, so I have nothing specific to report, but I think we can all agree that there's a lot of Valleyites, including Brawleyites, all over the Southwest. You know, this time of year, it's kind of the vacation time. So appreciate all my council member reports and all that's being done. I will move to the next item, and Elma, you don't have to put that in the minutes. We'll move to item 8, City Manager's Report.
As a quick reminder, tomorrow, at the Board of Supervisors chambers, there will be an appeal meeting for the County of Imperial's request to staff the Coupa. And they are looking for local stakeholders to express their support for local control. This request has been denied by the state previously, and this is a chance to collect local input from parties in support of the service being embedded within the County of Imperial. There are only 2 counties statewide that do not host their own Coupas, and we're one of the 2.
What time is that again?
It is from 1:30 to 3:30 in the Board of Supervisors chambers.
Okay, thank you. And were there any requests for letters of support as well, or is this just the comment?
This is for
input?
comment, but I'm sure a letter would be welcomed as well if you wish to submit one on behalf of the city, or you wish for the city to prepare one. I have asked that our interim chief, York, attend, and he has indicated availability. All the cities are being asked to provide staff to advocate for the topic.
I'll certainly see what I can do. That's why the time, I think that very possibly, at least within that time range, be available. So good to hear that. And is there any opposition on council that we move forward also with some written support for local Coupa? I think all of us are pretty well.
I would support it. I just had a question as far as what type of revenue would, because I mean, we're always thinking about revenue, and right now we're paying another agency to do this, right? So what type, how would that affect us as far as?
We'd be paying the same, well, a fee structure. The Coupa's responsibilities, they span a number of topics. What we experience as a city historically involves things like our chemical storage at the pool as it relates to chlorine. We go through a permitting process for managing items on premises. So instead of having the state agency, who has its local office on Wake in El Centro, we would
and we have to pay them.
Yeah,
Right now we have to pay them.
we pay a fee for the service, and we pay a fee for the service that the county provided it. The notion is that local control would be better from a governance point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
For
you.
the valley, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna. So could we, if there's, we can also move forward, just indicating our support for this local Coupa in writing as well.
Yeah.
Be happy to sign that. Very good. And is that it for the city manager's report? We'll go to item 9, city attorney's report.
Just on the code enforcement matter on I Street, been in contact with the owner of the property, and he told me he was begging for mercy. He asked me to back off, which I told him not going to happen. And he told me he's going to evict the tenant. It takes 60-day notice and this and that. And I set him straight on that. Got him hooked up with lawyers. He's talked to the lawyers that are handling that, and they've given him a 3-day notice and expect to evict that tenant that's creating the problem shortly. So looks like the problem will be solved shortly.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. And I know we're nearing to item 11, and
I can present the item if you'd like.
Maybe if we can touch on that, and I don't know if
I've
she's
texted her.
or
I haven't had any luck reaching her, which makes me think
but-
she's maybe still in the meeting.
If you don't mind, Rosanna, we'll go back and touch on item 4E.
Yes.
The discussion potential action to approve
And that can be,
that item.
The backup
balance
can be found on
energy. Yep.
page 111, and this is a piggyback action on a presentation that Deborah made before the body previously. And at that time, she was talking about various pursuits at the state level to address greenhouse gas emissions, and this orientation towards electrification that may or may not be best for customer choice or for affordability. And so the company that she works for is advancing a white paper that has to do with customer choice as well as diversification, that community resilience depends on having options in the event of a disaster. If you're overly dependent on one type of supply of power, that you, as a community, you may not be able to weather difficult moments in history. So the intent of the resolution that's included in the backup is to express an openness to a diverse range of options, to preserve customer choice, and to think of these issues as not either one or the other that's environmentally responsible, but instead part of a variety of strategies that support community resilience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I think maybe, hopefully most of us recall that presentation from previous. Are there any further questions on this topic? I think it's all spelled out pretty clearly also in the resolution. What's being asked, I think is very reasonable.
If there's no questions or comments from council, I'd make a motion to approve the item.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much, which will take us to item 10, City Clerk's report.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report, which will be item 11. We'll take a brief break, and we'll go to closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.